Hi, everybody. I'm super excited to be launching off this year's faculty development program seminar series. Mentorship is such an important foundational skill for a career in academic medicine, which we'll talk a lot about during our time together today. And I think it's a great place to start. For the seminar today, we will identify ways in which mentorship is important for career advancement. We will talk about how to find mentors that are the right fit for your individual professional development. And we'll talk about some strategies for how to create a mutually beneficial mentorship-menteeship relationship. What are some best practices on both sides? So benefits of mentoring, and I can talk through this long list of things that are borne out in the literature that mentors. Hospitalists at Montlake described in a survey that we did in 2019. It's this like confidence in career trajectory and growth. Mentors give you connections, guidance, assistance, development of projects, figuring out what your niche or specialty within hospital medicine is. Again, opening up doors for opportunities and finding other advisors and collaborators. So how do you, and I really like this quotation actually. This is from a commentary piece on a larger study about mentoring that was published in JHM about 10 years ago, but Jeff Weiss said, with respect to academic hospitalists, it's likely that nothing is as important as the question of mentorship. Even the hardest working hospitalists can lose their way without guidance and a roadmap. The mentor is central to both, but the lost opportunity is not borne by the individual physician alone. The academic department loses too. And I like that acknowledgement that it's individually important to have mentors, but overall in terms of things like career satisfaction and productivity, the department benefits from having strong mentorship for its faculty as well. So it's a broadly important thing. And now that I've convinced you that mentorship is important, how do you go about finding a mentor? And we'll talk through a few strategies. My sort of focus is really, it's finding the mentor who's the right fit for your professional development. And that requires a little bit of pre-work to figure out what your needs are and some self-reflection. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I can't recommend enough taking the time to do some reflection and writing to kind of clarify your values and what your professional mission is. Knowing your work style and habits and your communication style is always helpful up front, so that comes into play later as you're building that relationship. What are you hoping to get guidance on? What are some of your knowledge or skills gaps that you're trying to work on? Is it research or other particular scholarly work that you need help with? Or is it overall academic and career advice? Being specific in those opportunities and your goals is also helpful. So like, what are you hoping to work on in the next 3 months? What are you hoping to work on in the next year, potentially 5 years? And some tools to help you do that reflection is, I'm going to put a plug here for the IDP. You probably got an email from the department maybe a week or 10 days ago now that annual IDPs are due coming up. The hospitalist IDP has a few questions actually that are helpful for self-reflection, kind of getting at what you're most proud of that's on your CV and what may not be on your CV, kind of figuring out what the common theme is there, and articulating your goals. That planning process that IDP includes helps be specific in what your goals are and what a plan might be for achieving them. Helps you reflect also on what are important goals for you. I think that's such an individual thing, what we each find meaningful and fulfilling in our careers, what is authentic to our own career development is very different, and worth taking the time to kind of figure out for ourselves. Having this ADP is not just helpful for communicating to your section head or whoever is doing your annual review, but facilitates conversation with your mentors. It allows you to be specific with them about what your needs are, and overall helps you be specific and intentional. Going to be more broadly used for these documents throughout the division, but there are different IDPs that are easily accessible as well, that can help provide the same structure for a professional planning process. And you might have had exposure to these in other institutions or even in residency. And I think it can be a little bit painful to sit down and fill these out, but I do really think it helps you distill down kind of what you want and what you're hoping to make progress on. Another, I think, useful tool for expressing what your overall professional arc will look like and what is kind of meaningful and fulfilling work for you is something like called a mission statement. This is something else that can be shared with supervisors, mentors, other faculty. And I like this INSPIRE framework that's described in a paper that was actually in a pediatric journal, but gets at kind of identifying your core values, what population you're excited to serve, what difference you're hoping to make in the world, kind of your vision, and then the mission part is how you plan to do that. And having that mission statement then helps you pick and choose which activities you should take on because they align with your mission. And how do you find others, find collaborators, find people to help you network and make connections that are also in support of that mission. So I won't go into too much detail about how to write a mission statement, but there is an example for you to get an idea of what this can look like. So my mission is to take excellent care of all patients, but especially older patients and patients near the end of life, and to teach learners at all levels best practices in the care of patients with life-threatening illness and frail older adults. I also aim to support and advocate for medical students, especially fourth-year medical students in the sub-internship experience. If you guys have questions about how to build a mission statement, feel free to email me. I have a handout that I can send you that's part of actually a separate talk that I give as part of the hospitalist orientation later this year. I think kind of an important thing to reflect on for your professional development, and I will make a plug that it can certainly change over time. So revisiting and editing it as your interests evolve is a helpful thing to do. I think that's what's so exciting about this is it's a little bit dynamic. But there are themes I think we can all say, even coming out of residency, of core work that's important to us. Gosh, I really like working with medical students, or I get excited about patient safety initiatives and making care safer for our patients. Even those general threads, that contributes to your mission. And so having maybe jotting down a few of those ideas, certainly helpful for looking for what kind of mentors are going to work well for you and being able to communicate those interests to mentors clearly as well. I think having that up front is helpful. And as you do more, it gets refined. You realize, all right, so now looking for mentors. I want to just share up front and really encourage you to take the time to do this. This is a little bit of an organic process, and spending time up front, meeting with people really helps you find the right fit for your particular needs. You know, you might meet with a few people and the first meeting is not the right fit ultimately, but that leads to another introduction and leads to another introduction. So I think taking the time to search for the right mentor is important. Getting started, meet with people you know. People really like talking about their career trajectories and interests, and just even setting up a meeting to ask someone about, hey, how did you get to where you are and what do you like about your job is a great place to start. Those people can then give you recommendations about who might be a good fit for your individual needs. And so asking people you meet with for those connections, and then being persistent. If you meet with someone and again, it doesn't feel like the right fit up front, continuing to reach out to people and schedule more meetings until you find that right fit. Something that can help that's available to everyone in the division is the connector-based mentorship program, which is something that Shoma and I work on together. It was piloted at Montlake and is expanded to the hospital medicine groups at the VA, Harborview, and is being expanded to our GIM sites at those 3 clinical sites as well. We have a cohort of connectors at each clinical site that are trained especially to talk to junior faculty about their professional goals, explore kind of career and personal histories, what looks like authentic career development for each individual. And then they use that based on an individual conversation to make these warm introductions and connections for you. They think of faculty that they know, which in a professional network that's probably broader than someone earlier on in their career might have, to help make those introductions. And we have a couple of people on the call actually that are some of our connectors. I think I saw Chris there, Sandra, Shom. So there's some of our mid-career faculty who are part of this program. And if you have any questions about the program or wanting to get plugged in, you can always email me, and my email is listed at the end. So you're setting up all these meetings. You've maybe been brave and even cold emailed someone that you think might be a good fit, or through a variety of connections you've so yeah, now you've set these meetings. Like, what are you looking for? In addition to someone who's going to be helpful in your own kind of career interests and trajectory, looking for someone who's available and accessible. Are they responsive to emails? Are they able to set up time to meet with you? Are they focused on you and your individual needs? Do they help you develop kind of your own agenda for your career development? A mentor should be opening doors and providing opportunities for you, connecting you with collaborators, or thinking of maybe projects or other roles that are opening up in your group or division that might be an exciting opportunity for you. Mentors can help introduce that. I think mentors that also encourage their mentees to take risks and pursue new opportunities and try new things is really fruitful for growth. And then mentors that have a little bit of experience and track record in mentoring, always helpful. I will say new mentors can also be good, and you can both learn together, but someone that has a lot of experience in fostering mentee growth can be really helpful. And asking around, I think, either through formal connections or some other way, people kind of know who've worked with people and are available and excited to help. So in that first meeting, come prepared. Read the faculty profile of the person you're planning to meet with. Hopefully you've done a little bit of that, because you know that, gosh, this person has done a lot of exciting QI work, and that's what I want to do. And you know a little bit about some of the projects that they might be working on. come prepared to ask questions too. Just explore what that potential mentor's career has been like, what their interests are. Be ready to share about yourself. What kinds of projects and work have you done previously? And this is where that IDP and that mission statement can be helpful. If you have at least something drafted, then you can be specific in talking to these potential mentors about what you're looking for. Sending a follow-up thank you email for their time, and then being specific, saying, hey, I really liked meeting with you. I thought we had a lot of the same interests. I'm hoping to do more work in X, and I'm looking for a mentor for this type of work. Would you be willing to meet with me on a quarterly basis? Helps sort of formally set up that relationship. And it takes more than one mentor, I think. Creating a mentoring team is a really important and effective strategy. It's something that I've done for my own professional development, because one person may not be able to fulfill all the needs that you have, and having mentors with complementary strengths can make different contributions to your development. When you're looking, then you're looking for more than one person, have a mix of junior and senior people, and feel empowered to look outside of your group, even your division and institution. Cross division, cross department mentoring relationships can be really fruitful, and it can also be really helpful even to talk to folks outside of the UW. I have had a few phone calls with someone out at Pitt who's interested in medical education, and has been able to give me some good ideas. The way you can get connected to people outside of the institution are through your local mentors, people who are in their middle of their career, have kind of that growing reputation, know folks at other places that could be useful. Not just mentors, but collaborators also for you. And hopefully things normalize, and conferences and meetings are also in person again. I found that was a really nice way after a workshop, if you were really excited about it, to just go up and talk to the speakers and exchange emails. People are pretty excited to talk about their work, and we're happy to at least set up another follow-up conversation. So I found that. So the next slide, there are folks talking in the chat too about using Twitter to connect with people at other institutions with similar interests. So definitely Twitter and social media is another way of figuring out who might be interested in doing the same work that you are. So to get at your question, I'm thinking more about a mentorship team. I'll come back to that in a second, but I wanted to introduce kind of this mentoring model and the different forms that this might take. And there are a lot of words on this slide, but what we often think about is a mentor. We think of the dyadic mentorship model, where you're meeting with one person longitudinally, taking multiple meetings to work on a manuscript or work on a project. And you might have more than one of these people, but there are different roles. Coaching is awesome, and that kind of focuses more on a certain skill. Having sponsorship is also important. This is someone that can put you forward for an opportunity and advocates for you without maybe having that kind of one-on-one longitudinal meeting structure and relationship that we think of as traditional mentoring. There's connectors who provide these introductions and help with networking, and then even a peer mentor, talking to someone who's similar in rank but going through the same experiences, and even informally giving each other advice is another way to get mentoring. And so with all these different roles, I think that helps kind of provide a little bit of a structure for what your mentoring team could be built and how you might use that. You don't necessarily need one individual person for all these roles. One person might at different times provide different functions. I know, Shom, I've worked with you on career mentorship, project mentorship. You've sponsored me for things at different times. I personally have other mentors too that I'm meeting with sort of at the same time. But I ask different mentors for different things. I sort of tailor it based on what need is coming up for me. My particular mentoring team doesn't talk to each other, but there are formal mentoring panels, particularly I think for some of the folks that are in more of the scholarship pathway where their mentors are also coordinating with each other. And that's just a different style, but my panel or my team isn't communicating with each other, and that's also okay. I want to see if anyone else has any questions about kind of the team and the different roles that mentors might play in your career advancement, because I think this is pretty important. Trying to rely on one person for everything is probably not going to be as productive and fruitful for you. So having a few folks in your corner. Yeah, thanks, Cassidy.
Yeah, no, just because I'm like very junior faculty, and sometimes I'm wanting, like currently I'm applying for the assistant PD of wellness, and I'd want to try to look as best I can and think about people who I thought that I've mentored, but what actually warrants being able to put someone on your CV as a mentor? Because I'm like looking at these examples and I'm like, as a resident, was I actually a mentor at all? Or can I count that? When I worked with medical students on like their applications for residency and let them practice interview with me and stuff like that, or did a abstract with them, or do I really need to just count it as a mentor when I'm in my career as an attending and doing kind of one of these roles? So that's kind of where my question is.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And what you're describing sounds like coaching work. And if it was something that you were dedicating time to, I think can fit in a mentoring section of a CV, because it shows that you built those skills that might be useful for whatever opportunity that you're pursuing, but using kind of specific language about what work you were exactly doing. I think you bring up a good point that we'll talk a little bit more about it later, but actually doing mentoring or being the mentor for someone can be important for the mentor's professional advancement as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks.
Anyone else in the group have some advice on that as well about how to describe some mentoring work that you might have been doing on your CV? So now you have a cohort of mentors, and I want to talk a little bit about how do you build and maintain that relationship. I would encourage the mentee to actually manage up. When the mentee drives the relationship and sets the agenda, it's often the most successful for sustaining the relationship. Mentors are busy, wearing a lot of hats, may have multiple mentees. So I want to empower you to be the one reaching out, scheduling meetings, setting the schedule and the agenda that's going to work for you, and being clear about what the goals and expectations you have are. And then more qualitatively, just ask for and be open and accepting to feedback. Ask a lot of questions and actively listen during those conversations. It can be helpful after a meeting to send a follow-up email about, okay, this is a summary of the task items. I'm going to accomplish before we meet again on X date. And if the mentee drives that, if it's kind of a managed up thing, I think that helps keep more productive trajectory as you're continuing to get mentoring. So to summarize, on the mentee side of things, some strategies are to do that pre-work and self-reflection and take some time to write about what your mission is, what your goals are, kind of what your plan is for achieving those over months, 1 year, 5 years. Dedicating some time to meet with a lot of prospective mentors and get introductions, connections, even taking the step to cold email people within and outside the institution. Even a single conversation can be really helpful for further clarifying what you're looking for. So even if it doesn't develop into a longitudinal relationship, I think you can walk out of a single meeting knowing more about yourself and what you want, and maybe with a few other names to contact. Do build a mentoring team, looking for multiple people who can meet your different needs in your professional development. And then again, feel empowered to manage up and kind of direct that relationship with your mentor. I thought this was interesting. I wanted to talk briefly about some things not to do. This was an interesting piece of mine that was published in JAMA in 2017, where they described some maladaptive behaviors on the mentee's part, with they categorized in sort of this conflict averse category, but you have the overcommitter who can't say no and ends up agreeing to too much. You have the ghost that disappears and doesn't follow up on things, and then the doormat where is sort of taken advantage of, and the energy is diverted into things that are not helpful for the mentee's career. And then they had this confidence lacking phenotype, like the vampire who is overly communicative and needing attention, the lone wolf who is a little too independent, and then this backstabber type who doesn't take responsibility for mistakes or failure, which I thought was interesting to kind of talk about some things that maybe not to do in addition to strategies that work well. I'm going to move on to mentor best practices next. But I did spend the bulk of our time together talking about things from the mentee side, because I think earlier on in our careers, that's sort of the role we play. Any questions or comments so far?
I did have one quick more question. Something that I get nervous about is when I've already attended a talk that somebody might have done like a year or two ago on a subject. And then I want to follow up with them and maybe ask for specific help, but I don't have, I might have deleted the email with the slides and I try to go over my notes, but like, is that a bad use of a mentor's time to ask them to maybe spend a half an hour or an hour with you on their expert, like based on one of their talks, that like, because I think best practice would be for you to try to apply what you learned from their talk first by yourself. But sometimes, you feel stuck and you just feel like it would be helpful to, like, I'll say my specific situation might be working on my teaching portfolio, and I got a lecture on teaching portfolios last year, and I'm like, I really should be working on this myself. And so I just wondered if you have any advice in that area, and especially with people who might have given talks that might be recorded somewhere at other institutions and on like maybe time management? And should I be trying to ask if they have a link that I could watch so I don't take up their valuable time? Or is it okay to ask them for their time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think people who are giving a talk about a topic, it's a good indication that it's something they're excited about and passionate about and knowledgeable about. So usually it's something you can get people talking about. I think it doesn't hurt to say, hey, I remembered I really enjoyed this content. I thought it was super helpful. Is there a way I could take a look at the slides or recording again? And if I have additional questions, can I reach out to you?
I did the same thing to Shom like a few weeks ago because I had missed his teaching portfolio workshop last year. So I was like, oh, I know you did this workshop and there's probably slides somewhere, but I missed it. Can we meet? And he didn't seem offended at all.
I was a little offended, but I
He didn't look it.
Yeah, great question. If it makes you feel any better, at least even locally, we asked in the same survey how many of our faculty would be excited to do more mentoring than they're already doing. And 89% were excited, like strongly agreed that they would want to do mentoring. So people are excited to help. And I'll talk a little bit more about what's in it for them. Believe me, there are a few great things to be gained for mentoring. And sometimes it's just, the problem is getting the two people together and building the right relationship and the right fit. And so hopefully some of these strategies kind of help smooth out that process. But the interest in mentoring is definitely there. All right, so mentor best practices. Take the time to get to know your mentee. This is a really successful process when it's individualized and tailored to the mentee. What does authentic and meaningful career development look like for that particular individual? And because that's going to impact what sort of guidance and connections and support you provide. This is going to look different for each of your different mentees. So take the time up front to get to know them and ask exploratory questions. Prioritize the mentee needs and agenda, even over maybe your own as the mentor. Again, it's kind of figuring out what their needs are and making those the priority of the relationship in order to further their career. I would anticipate as a mentor needing to provide kind of a mix of professional and personal support. Work-life integration is an important part of everyone's career. And I think what people often need guidance on is like, how do I balance these scholarly interests that I'm excited about, but I have these other commitments, and even talking about that out loud can be really helpful for a mentee. So for mentors, I wouldn't be surprised to get questions about both. Again, mentors should be keeping an eye out for fruitful opportunities for their mentees and opening doors for them. And then encourage mentees and celebrate the successes. I think that's an important part of sustaining the relationship too. I think the inimitable Trish Critic put it best. This is her list of mentor best practices. Again, acknowledging being accessible and responsive, asking a lot of questions and listening to the answers, helping to network and open doors, providing feedback and perspective from your own experiences, and then again, prioritizing the mentee and putting them first. Kind of the analog to some of the mentee missteps. This is mentor malpractice that was described in another piece of my mind in JAMA in 2016. That's a similar structure, and I thought these were kind of interesting. And the authors offered solutions for even rectifying some of these pathologic behaviors. They have some fun names like the hijacker, the exploiter, the possessor, kind of behaviors that can be maladaptive on the mentor side, and some ways to rectify that either by setting boundaries, ensuring that that mentee has multiple mentors so that there is a more balanced guidance that individual is receiving, even considering formally ending the relationship if it's not productive. This is a set of passive mentor malpractice behaviors, but this is the mentor that potentially has too many other commitments, or is too focused on their own priorities and agenda than to allow the mentee to truly grow. And again, the potential countermeasures they suggest are some of the strategies that I recommended up front is setting expectations and boundaries and building a team, establishing what communication is going to work for both people up front, so that, again, the relationship can thrive. So I wanted to end with what are the benefits of mentoring from the mentor side. We talked a little bit about a mentoring section of your CV where you can describe if you've spent significant amount of time in different roles, either coaching different trainees, other faculty, etc., providing advice, or project-based mentorship, more longitudinal career-based mentorship that could go in that section. Mentoring is also really fun. It's helpful for professional enrichment, feeling satisfied in your own career. It's a way of giving back to the profession and acknowledging all the mentors that helped you get to where you are, and also build your legacy. I'll pause here and see if any of the mentors in the group want to share some personal experiences with this. So I will wrap up here. Kind of what I hope you have gotten a better sense of after our time together is that mentoring is a critical component of a career in academic medicine. It's crucial for advancing your career. It improves scholarly productivity and increases professional satisfaction and confidence in the career trajectory. Finding a mentor can be challenging, but being persistent and taking the time to find the multiple mentors that are the right fit for you, and being prepared and intentional in how you direct that relationship coming from the mentee side will help the relationship be successful. So that's all I had for you. I'm happy to take any questions, or you can email me. Email me if you're interested in having a connector help you find mentors.